So, how do you know if your hormones are out of balance? When most people think about hormones, they think about their sex hormones, but all of your hormones affect your health and well-being. Your adrenal hormones, your thyroid hormones, your pituitary hormones, your pancreatic hormones, all of your hormones. If your hormones are out of balance, you'll notice particular signs and symptoms way before lab tests reveal hormonal issues. Now, sometimes people live with hormonal imbalance so long they no longer notice any symptoms. But when asked about their sleep habits and their energy and their drive, not just sex drive, but motivation, and the way their brain functions and their moods, they realize that yes, they do have symptoms that their hormones are out of balance. So what are the symptoms of your hormones being out of balance? Well, a common symptom of hormonal imbalance is fatigue. Fatigue can be because your thyroid is low, your adrenals are low, or your sex hormones are low. It can also be because your growth hormone is really low. Now, sleep dysfunction is another symptom. If you're not falling asleep or staying asleep, that can be a sign that your hormones are out of balance. If your sex hormones are low, you're not going to be able to stay asleep. And if your adrenal hormones are out of balance, especially if you have circadian adrenal function, meaning you make more cortisol at night, you're going to have trouble staying asleep as well and falling asleep. When you wake up in the middle of the night, you're going to feel anxious. Now, weight issues can sometimes indicate that your hormones are out of balance because your thyroid controls your metabolism. And if your thyroid hormone is low, it's going to be difficult for you to lose that weight. And if your testosterone and growth hormone levels are low, you're going to have trouble building muscle and keeping your bones dense. Now, if you're estrogen dominant, meaning your estradiol is higher in ratio to progesterone, then you're going to see weight mainly in your breast, hips, and thighs. You may also notice bloating because of water retention. And if your cortisol levels are high, at first you may lose weight, but eventually you'll gain weight. And then when your adrenals get fatigued, your cortisol levels drop, and you actually continue to hold on to that weight. And the weight tends to be all around your middle, not just a thick waist, but a thick torso from your armpits all the way down to your hips. Now, when men's testosterone levels are low, the back of their shoulders tend to flatten. As soon as a boy goes into puberty and he starts spiking testosterone, the posterior deltoid develops. As men get older or hormonally depleted, their testosterone levels fall and their posterior deltoid will flatten. These physical signs, like the way you're carrying body fat, can really indicate which hormones are out of balance. So what are some of the other symptoms? If you're finding that you're more irritable, that you get stressed more easily, you're more anxious or depressed, that could be a hormonal issue. Now, before starting my integrative practice, I noticed many women were being put on antidepressants and anti-anxieties when it was actually hormonal imbalance. Your sex hormones affect your brain chemistry. If your estrogen levels are low, it affects serotonin production. If your progesterone levels are low, it affects GABA production. And if testosterone is low, it affects dopamine production. So depression and anxiety can be a sign of low hormone production. If you're having trouble getting pregnant, you may have hormonal imbalances. Typically, it's the hypothalamus that's out of balance, so you're not ovulating regularly to produce enough progesterone, and oftentimes not producing enough estrogen. And the same with men. If they're not producing enough testosterone or the adequate amount of follicle-stimulating hormone to stimulate sperm production, they'll have issues with fertility. Now, bearing mechanical issues like malformed uterus or scar tissue blocking fallopian tubes or the vas deferens in men, the majority of fertility issues have to do with hormonal imbalance. By balancing the hypothalamus with Genesis Gold, women will often produce enough sex hormones to be able to conceive and carry a healthy pregnancy. The majority of hormonal issues are hypothalamic dysfunction because the hypothalamus controls all of your hormones. Like adrenal fatigue, it's not just that your adrenals give out, it's your hypothalamus that is constantly screaming at those adrenals to trigger the fight or flight response, and they eventually wear out. So fixing the HPA axis by supporting the hypothalamus can help normalize adrenal function. If you're having symptoms of low thyroid, tiredness, constipation, hair loss, low body temperature, supporting your hypothalamus can help. Hair loss can be a sign of hormonal imbalance too, including low estrogen, high testosterone, low thyroid, high cortisol, and low DHEA. And excess body and facial hair in women usually indicates unbound or excess testosterone and high DHEA. One of the biggest complaints I see in my patients is that they're sick and tired of being sick and tired because their hormonal imbalance has been going on for so long. And oftentimes, they've been given medications to help them either sleep or for depression or anxiety or to lower their high cholesterol, which tends to be high when your hormones, especially sex hormones, are low or when your adrenal hormones are low. But what they really needed is to get their hormones back into balance. And there are many other symptoms of hormonal imbalance. So why don't you join me in our hormone support group, which you can access through our free hormone reboot training. That way, if you have any questions about what might be going on in your body, I can answer them for you. And please dive into the hormone reboot training. It's really a thorough course teaching you everything you need to know about how your hormones affect your body and what might be out of balance, and gives you the tools that you need in order to actually start healing. So paying attention to the symptoms that you have, as well as the signs in your body, is really important to help determine whether your hormones might be out of balance. Then, going to your healthcare provider to get checked. Just be sure to watch my video on blood tests that I like to look at to check hormonal competence.